Hey guys, hope all is well. This is episode 49 of the Rugby Recap. You have myself, Rugby Itch, as well as the Kiwi lads. First of all, man, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, Tim. 4 games of Super Rugby this weekend. Once more, the last weekend that we only have the 4 before jumping back into the 6. I think there's a question on everyone's mind, and it's not so much to do with the rugby. What's happened to your face? Where's the facial hair gone? You just got the mustache. It's not November.
I know
What
I'm not
happened?
PI over here, but no, it's yeah, no. I thought it was a bit kind of getting a bit scruffy, I guess overall. And again, I do kind of grow my beard kind of quickly. So it's one of those like where I definitely just wanted to like kind of just shave everything off and just let it kind of be a bit more get into a bit.
Well, you missed a spot.
Well, yeah. But I like the mustache actually. Like it's weird. Like whenever I do this, like I've done it like 3 times, but every time, like when I shave, I actually just keep the mustache because I kind of like a bit of facial hair, and then I remove it. Then I remove it when I have like a lot, because I trim this down essentially. So then it kind of obviously how do I say this? It matches with I guess the rest. But yeah, no, for the meantime, I'm rocking the stash at the moment. But yeah, of course, before getting to the rugby, guys, make sure obviously to like the video. We'll greatly appreciate that. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Check out our respective channels, and yeah, we'll dive straight into this. But before we kind of go into the fixtures, let's talk about the kind of the results we saw from Super B last week because we weren't able to give you guys a review. Quickly just dive into kind of the results. I mean, there's some shockers really, just to put it simple. I mean, in terms of that Moana Pacifica game, beating the Reds, the Wartars beating the Crusaders. I mean, again, the Hurricanes, beating the Chiefs was not unexpected, but it was a good game overall. And then, of course, the last one, of course, was Rebels beating the Highlanders. And to most people, you would say that was a shock because you normally say the Highlanders would win. But again, the Rebels have been impressive, so it's not like a shock compared to the first two, I'd say. But what's your take on, I guess, all 4 of those games?
Well, believe it or not, 4 from 4 underdogs got themselves the win. Now, of course, there were a couple controversial underdogs, such as the Hurricanes, seeing as they had won all their games up to the stage, although they broke a 5-match losing streak that they had up against the Chiefs, so very nicely done there. We had once again some games really go down to the wire, a bit of golden point drama in the Crusaders versus Waratahs game. Moana Pacifica digging in deep, getting themselves the win over the Reds. I think that it's safe to say after that performance that those two sides, Moana Pacifica and also the Reds, I would argue the most 2 unpredictable sides in the Super Rugby Pacific competition now. Because the Reds are either going to beat some of the best sides or they're going to butcher it to some of the sides that they should have beaten. And Moana Pacifica, a little bit the same. This was a game that the Reds, on paper and on form, should have won by a comfortable margin. I was a bit harsh on Moana Pacifica. I said this could be about a 30 or 40 point, which theoretically it should have been, but it wasn't because somehow something happened week to week, and Moana Pacifica go from conceding 68 points last weekend beforehand to then only conceding 14 points up against a side that in their last game just narrowly lost to the Brumbies. So it's a weird competition, Tim. Predictions are hard to do.
They are.
But yeah, some good performances from underdogs throughout that round.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at each game, I mean, like the 2 red cards you had for Fraser McBride and then Ted McDermott, some kind of obviously kind of led to, I guess, Moana Pacifica kind of winning that game. Then you had the likes of that close, narrow kind of like, I'm not gonna say it was the wrong call, but like how what's his name? Oh gosh, I'm forgetting his name now. The number 10 Bahana, yeah. So he kicked the ball, but there's still 1 second left on the clock. Restarts. I was like, okay, wow, okay. So, but this is why I always find it weird how the clock in the actual game is obviously different to what we see on the TV because it's never the same. So I was a bit confused when I first saw it, but I was like, okay, well, it must obviously be for the stadium is what you're gonna go by. But it was just one of those. I was like, whoa, what's happening here? But yeah, it was cool to see the Wartahs win it though. And then again, you had the likes of the Hurricanes, like you said, good victory for them. And again, the Rebels really, I thought it was a really impressive display by them. They had some good tries in there. I mean, Darby Lancaster getting a hat trick for himself. We even talked about him within the preview. So it just goes to show that he's definitely going to be in the conversation, I'd say, for the Wallabies going forward. But overall some good games. But of course, for this week, we do have, in my opinion, I would say bigger matchups because we do have the likes of I'm going over to it right now. FIJIAN DRUA versus the Hurricanes, Reds versus Highlanders, Blues versus Brumbies, and the Force versus the Crusaders. So I think honestly, I think all four of these are good matches for the context of this season so far. I mean,
I just got so excited that I had to sneeze. Sorry, Tim. You continue on.
No worries. But I guess just in terms of the first game with FIJIAN DRUA versus the Hurricanes, what's your thoughts on that one? Because I think this would be a really good game when looking at it.
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because if this was a home game for the Hurricanes, the score would be completely different to what it probably is going to end up being. Now, this Hurricanes side definitely in form. They've gone with a strong lineup once again. They aren't really straying away from one of their stronger looking sides for this matchup. A couple changes here and there, but this FIJIAN DRUA side, it's going to be another good test. They've got a brilliant record at home, and now they're up against what some people would say is the most in-form side in the competition. Now, you can't really argue it. They're winning all their games that they've played in, beating the top sides around the Super Rugby comp. So, yeah, it's going to be a real testing point. And the fact that the DRUA are missing Frank Lamani, I think that Kuravuli is going to be able to get the job done as a decent option at 9. Whether or not they can win that game, though, it's going to be a different story. You can't underestimate Fiji and Fiji, though. That's something that every side that's gone there has learned. Yeah, it's going to be tough, and I know you'll say, except for the Blues, because, of course, they're the only side.
Exactly. You read my mind. You read my mind.
50 likes on the podcast, Tim will shave his eyebrows too.
Oh, jeez. No. Definitely, don't listen to him. I'm definitely not doing that. That's for sure. But, gosh, imagine. That'd be horrible. Even like...
That'd be all right.
I would hate that. I would definitely hate that. But... No, I guess in terms of the game, like you said, it's going to be a good matchup overall. Because again, when you're looking at FIJIAN DRUA, whenever they play at home, it really is unpredictable. Like you were saying earlier with Moana Pacifica and the Reds, like when FIJIAN DRUA play at home, you would expect them to be the favorite going into it, just because the fans are behind them. They turn it up in terms of the energy, in terms of their style. It's just exciting rugby to watch. So it's one of those where. It's weird thinking, like in a weird way, like the Hurricanes have been by far the best team within Super B so far. But then there's a bit of my mind saying like, oh no, FIJIAN DRUA can definitely beat them. So it's like it's a bit of a weird thing to kind of say that. But again, FIJIAN DRUA have been impressive so far. Again, they've been a bit of up and down season, I'd say. They haven't been like what I wouldn't say they've had as good of a season start to what we saw in terms of last season. But this season they have been pretty impressive in terms of the wins they've been able to pick up. But yeah, it's gonna be a close matchup, at the say least. But if I had to say my prediction for this one, I'm actually gonna go for an upset. I'm actually gonna back the FIJIAN DRUA. I think this is one of those games where, again, I'm not saying the Hurricanes can't win this, by the way, but it's just one of those where if there's any time to do it, like where the record kind of goes, I guess, they have finally a loss under the belt. I think this is probably the game where you can maybe see it coming. So I'm gonna back the FIJIAN DRUA. I hope they do it. Again, Masi will hopefully he has to get a few tries in order to make it happen. But what's your take on this? Do you think they can win it, or do you think the Hurricanes will be too strong?
It's a really hard one because we've got to remember of the home games that the FIJIAN DRUA have won this year, with the exception of the Crusaders, they've all been Australian sides that they've been able to beat. And how many of those games have gone right down to the wire and then have been decided very closely? I mean, we saw that Golden Point game between the DRUA and the Waratahs, and it's a hard game to predict. It's one of those ones that either way, it's going to be a good game. It's an evening game in Fiji as well, so it's going to be a little bit cooler than some of those other contests we've seen, couple hours later on in the day. Yeah. As much as I think the DRUA would love to have a really good crack at this contest, I'm still thinking the Hurricanes are going to get the job done.
Fair enough. And I see that they're also going to start Aidan Morgan for this one as well. So we get to see kind of what he does in this game. Because I think Ruben Love is on the bench, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, still, overall, a good side when looking at both teams. But again, moving on towards the second matchup of the week, we do have the likes of the Reds versus the Highlanders. This will be a really good one just because I think the Reds are in need of really a home game, and they normally kind of I'd say bring it up at least when they're at home in terms of Queensland and in terms of the performances we've seen. But again, the last home game they did have, of course, was against the Brumbies, and they actually did lose that. But I think it was like by 1 or 2 points, if I'm not mistaken. So they had a narrow, there you go, 1 point. So it was a very narrow defeat. So it's one of those like where they're definitely on a losing run at the moment, which they need to kind of break. And hey, I mean, this is an opportunity here with the Highlanders where, again, the Highlanders definitely, oh gosh, how do I put it nicely? They didn't live up to the expectation, I'd say, in that previous game. That was like one of those where I honestly thought they should have beat. I actually thought they were going to beat the Rebels in that one. I thought like, yes, I did predict the Rebels to win in terms of our predictions, but in all honesty, I thought the Highlanders are a strong team, so they should be able to kind of match up against them. But no, the Rebels just outplayed them, and I'm kind of worried that something could happen here. But at the same time, there's Tim McDermott and Fraser McWright, who are also out, I believe, for the next 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. So that's 2 key players that are missing in for the Reds now. I mean, so it's tough to call. But what's your kind of take on this game? Because it'll be a good matchup.
I've got no idea about this game. I'm going to be completely honest. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Like, many changes are being made for these two sides. Like the 9-10 combo for the Highlanders, James Arscott alongside Cameron Miller. For the Reds, they've got Kalani Thomas starting at 9.
He's good.
There's plenty of changes. Like, it's such a hard one to know who's going to be able to, like you said, bounce back and get back into the swing of things. The Highlanders, they've had a 50-50 season so far.
Yeah.
Away from home, like the Reds last time they played at Suncorp had some crazy running meters, crazy defenders beaten, but they still lost. So are they going to be clinical enough in this contest? That's the big question. I want to say the Reds with the home field advantage should get the job done. I hated the way that the Highlanders played up against the Rebels. Like, it just didn't look like anything like we thought they would in that game. So you got to wonder whether or not maybe these changes for them are actually going to be a very good thing, and it might help them out big time. I don't know. I'll go the Highlanders. It's getting harder. Okay. We're at the stage of the competition. We should know roughly how teams are going to go. Exactly. But there's like 4 teams at the moment who just don't have a consistent week-to-week form. I'm assuming that the Highlanders have had a couple rough games, but then saying that. So if the Reds, who knows, 50-50, give it to the Highlanders, see what happens.
Yeah, like you said, it is like, I mean, that is the word of this episode so far. Unpredictable. It's just it's very just this whole season has been very unpredictable, and that's also a good thing because the Australian sides have really stepped up, I think, so far this season, and actually saw there was a stat, if I'm not mistaken, where they've actually equaled already the amount of wins they've got in the previous season. So it's one of those like where they're definitely showcasing the talent, and it's something which Joe Schmidt will definitely be impressed by. But yeah, it's tricky to kind of guess who'll win games now, which is it's a good thing to have actually, because again, in all honesty, I kind of like it now where it's very unpredictable, so it's good. But in terms of this game, oh gosh, you said the Highlanders. So I actually was thinking the Highlanders, but I'm like, oh, do I want to go the same? I don't know.
I mean, earlier on you did say that the Rebels winning was a guess, so like. You know, you also want to be gut, see.
That's why I'm like, now I'm like, I think I just have to do the same thing again. I'm gonna go with the Reds. So I'm gonna go with the Reds. I'm gonna switch it up there. So we have two differences so far in terms of our predictions there. I guess in terms of the next game, which is Blues versus Brumbies. I mean, this is gonna be a great game to watch. I mean, this has always been really tightly contested, I'd say, between both these sides. Either home and away, it's always been a good matchup. Again, I could be wrong in saying this, but the last memory I have of this particular game, Blues Brumbies, was actually that semi-final, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was it last year or the year before then? I actually can't remember the last time, because you have to remember that the Blues home game against the Brumbies actually didn't take place last season in Eden Park. It was part of the what's it called? The Melbourne round. So that's the wrong. I could be wrong in saying this, but I can't remember the last time besides that semi-final that the Blues Brumbies played, which was like really. I mean, it was only separated by 1 point, just 20 points to 19. So it was definitely.
I've got one here. 5th of March 2023.
Okay.
And we did see the Brumbies win at 25 points to 20. Now that one was in the
That was
super round.
That was in the
Although
super round.
in the semi-final, I don't think they played each other. It was actually Blues
No.
versus Crusaders,
Crusaders.
Chiefs,
Exactly.
Brumbies.
So that's what I'm saying. I think it's
Both
the year.
lost.
I think it's the year before that. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, I think
We're
it's the
going
year.
old school.
Well, I think it's the last time the Brumbies have played the Blues in Eden Park. I think was 2 years ago. So it's one of those like where we haven't seen this matchup in a while in terms of I guess this game. So
20 points to 19 in that semi-final.
Yeah. So
in 2022.
Exactly. That's the knowledge game, guys. But no, I'll be very kind of I'm excited for this game. Really, I'm really excited. Again, we have Alpha back as well as Patrick Tupeloto, which is good to see. I know Martelez in there, Reiko. I'm trying to think who else. We have Harry Plummer starting at 10, I see. Same with Funaki there, I believe, at 9. We have Forbes, I believe, at 15. So it's a decent side, I'd say. Obviously, there's a few changes that the Blues have had to make throughout the season because we don't have Zion Sullivan for the remainder of it now, which is a bit unfortunate. But yeah, I guess for the Brumbies, they have a solid team as well. But I mean, they have a lot of good players. Let's make that clear. They have a lot of good talent. But what's your take on this game? Because I think it's gonna be a good game.
I enjoyed the team, I guess, kind of introductions. How it went from they've got to when the Blues you were going through the team. It was we've got these guys.
Mate,
my team.
Gosh, it's the Blues. Blues through and through.
Does that mean if I back the Blues to win this game, you're going to go different and back the Brumbies to beat them at Eden Park?
I don't know about that. I think the only time I'm going to ever go against the Blues was in the past would have been against the Crusaders because they always had our number. So that's the only ever time I can honestly say I've gone against the Blues in a game where I'm just like, okay, this will be a tough battle. But no, I mean, I don't to spoil it early, but I'm definitely going to go for the for the Blues to win this because again they've been pretty impressive. I think throughout the last few games as well in terms of their kind of high scoring in that. And I think they've only allowed like in their last 3 games like under 17 points or something like that. So it's been pretty impressive actually for what it is. Or there's some stat out there that I saw recently. But again, they've been excellent. So, but yeah, for you, like who do you think is going to get the win the battle between these two sides?
Well, I am thinking that we're going to see a decent performance from the Blues, or at least I'm hoping so. There's something, I don't know what it is about this game, but I feel like there's all the talent in the world out there on the field, and I have a really bad feeling it's going to be just a real scrappy, ugly game, like the Blues versus Waratahs was. You remember that game? The game that we both labeled as the worst game of the year?
That's the worst game of the year, but I will say that in this one, we'll at least have a try from both sides. We'll at least have that because that's what we've always had at least. Like, you are right, by the way, like, in the previous games, like particularly at home that I can remember, it's always been very like low scoring in terms of Eden Park. Like I think the Blues have only scored like 2, I think at most 3 tries, but like it's not like a high score line. So it's one of those where you're definitely right that this is definitely gonna be one of those games where we may not see a lot of points compared to the rest of the games. So, yeah.
But then at the same time, there's the other side of things, which could be we could see just the floodgates open, similar to the Waratahs versus Crusaders, how it's just side going tit for tat and going try after try. Yeah. Is it as likely as that low-scoring game? Probably not. But
I hope you're right, by the way. I hope
there's a chance that we see Mark Talia and Corey Toole just start to tear it up. I am backing the Blues, though, but I think it could be a little bit ugly, but they'll get the job done.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely one of those games where, yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be a good watch, that's for sure. But and yeah, I am with you with the Blues, just to be clear on that front. But again, I know. You guys all know this. You guys all know this. But I guess in terms of the last game, we do have the likes of the Western Force versus the Crusaders. And again, normally I wouldn't actually be really up for this game in terms of like excitement levels, but I'm actually really excited to see this game, and it's really only for one key reason: Curtly Bill, because he's now starting at the number 15 spot for the Western Force. You know, he's just he's signed for Western Force, I believe, on a short-term contract. I'm not sure if it's I guess it just depends on how well he does, really. But I'm really excited to see just how he does, because I've heard some good things like from like I don't know what it's called, by the way, in terms of the lower divisions within Australia. Like, you obviously have like the NPC for New Zealand, but there's like the level below. I don't know what it's called, but I've heard things for other podcasts where they've talked about, him playing in these lower divisions, and he just looked like incredible. So, of course, there's a level to it, of course, but I'm really just excited to see what he can do in this game against the Crusaders. But, what's your take on this game? Because I think it's going to be really – it can be one-sided, or it's going to be a very close battle, I think.
Yeah, once again, this is a little bit like the Reds Highlanders, Al. I've got no idea.
Yeah.
Like, Crusaders, they should have won that game up against the Waratahs. And, there were so many moments that they could have got the win. Now, of course, like I mentioned on one of the streams after that match, because people were saying, there were some controversies and whatnot, but I said, if there's going to be controversy, you also can't afford to concede 40 points or anywhere above 40 points when it's a game that could go down to the wire. You need to make sure your defence is a bit strong, and I think it will be in this game. But, this Western Force side, once again, very hot and cold. They either go out there and beat the Reds, or they go out there and get absolutely demolished. And I hope that it's going to be more like that first option of the two, and they really dig in and start to put the Crusaders up against it a little bit. A lot of experience in that front row for the Crusaders, going with Joe Moody and Owen Frank. So I feel like that's going to be quite a entertaining battle at scrum time. And you got a tackler in Tizano who just goes for everything that he can. Yeah. Like you mentioned, Kirtley Beale at 15 going up against Che Fiaki. That is a battle that some people probably never thought they were going to get to see. But yeah, I feel like this weekend, it's not a great thing to say for a podcast where we're trying to predict things. But I think this weekend, honestly, is just a wait and see. Just watch the games. Enjoy them as they happen, because of course we're already almost, I think, more than halfway through this Super Rugby Pacific season. So just strap in, enjoy the ride, and just enjoy some rugby. But now you're going to ask me for my prediction, and I've stalled this long, and I still don't know. But I'll go the Crusaders, just because I feel like they can't blow 2 in a row, can they? I mean, they blew 5 at the start of the season, so they should have learnt from their mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, from my standpoint, I think I'm with you. I think for this one, I am actually going to go with the Crusaders as well. I think one of the things which I've actually been asking for, and they've finally done it, which is good to see, they've actually now started Christian Leo Willie at the number 8 spot ahead of Cullen Grace, which I think is needed because going off last season, he was really impressive for the Crusaders, and I think he's definitely someone who he didn't make an impact in that Waratahs game when he came off the bench as well. So I honestly think he's a good player to start, and I think he's a player really that Razor would like to see a lot more kind of get starting minutes, because I honestly think he has the potential to get selected for the All Blacks, but it just comes down towards the minutes he has. Because again, there is obviously other players who's played better than him so far this year, but if he gets a bit more minutes on the board, then there could be a conversation around him. So I kind of want to see him get a few more starts in his bag. And yeah, this is the first of them, so it's good to see. But yeah, I am with you, and I will go for the Crusaders in this one. I think they're going to be kind of, I guess, what's the word? They're just, I guess, disappointing themselves just for not winning that game against the Waratahs. So they'll be coming up with a bit of vengeance, unfortunately, for the Western Force into this one. And yeah, really wanting to get the W for this one. But yeah, so moving away then from the Super Rugby, we're going to move on then towards. No, that didn't sound right. It didn't sound right. Sorry, let's do a cleaner version. Yeah, so moving away then from Super Rugby, we will quickly talk about the Champions Cup, which did happen, of course, last week. A lot of, I guess, not surprising results. There's only one that I predicted that was a surprise in terms of the Harlequins Bordeaux game. But besides that, I think we generally got it right in terms of, I guess, the teams who kind of pulled through and obviously advanced towards these semifinals. So yeah, let me get your quick take on, I guess, all those games and just what you thought of them.
Well, a lot of high-scoring games of rugby for 4 matches.
Yeah.
Harlequins versus Bordeaux, 42 points to 41. Yeah. Leinster getting themselves the win over La Rochelle, 40 points to 13, which I think was a massive... Yeah. It's a big confidence booster for Leinster. The last 3 times that they've played La Rochelle in Champions Cup playoff games, La Rochelle have had the victory, and that's the thing. It just showed how important home field advantage is as well. We've got to remember La Rochelle, they went from playing France in 1 week then going all the way to South Africa and then all the way to Ireland the week after. Like, that did take a bit of a toll on them. They didn't quite look like themselves. And Leinster just looked strong and really determined to get themselves that victory. Northampton versus the Bulls, 59 points to 22. And then to lose over Exeter, 64 points to 26. Now, that game was actually kind of close at halftime. And then to lose when, you know what?
Yeah,
we're going to ramp it up just a little bit more and we're going to put you into the deep water. So, yeah, 4 entertaining games of rugby. I saw, like, of course, seeing as I do the live streaming side of things, I saw after that Bordeaux versus Harlequins game, there were a couple people going, oh, does defence not exist in the Champions Cup or something? They were actually a South African fan. Their side conceded 59 points in the later contest. But, like, that's the thing. I said about it, and I said, yes, you can look at it as the defences were struggling, or you can just take a step back, look at it as, boy, there were some entertaining moments throughout that game. Lead changes, attacking prowess of these two sides. Like, sometimes you just got to give an attack some credit. And yes, defensive tackles missing and everything like that can hurt you. But, like, at the same time, you just got to enjoy the good rugby that was happening. And I think we got that throughout the Champions Cup. Yes, there were some one-sided games. But at the same time, like, I don't want to say any of the sides that lost, with the exception maybe of La Rochelle, didn't look like they had a fair chance at some stage throughout the match to be able to get into it. Like, even Exeter throughout that first half I thought looked impressive. The Bulls, even though they had a younger side, kept on coming back and trying to get into that contest. But it just seemed to be the second halves that determined a lot of the matches. Harlequins seemed to be the fresher of the two sides in that Bordeaux game just by a little bit. And just by a little bit is what they got the win by, just the 1 point.
That's what counted. That's what counted at the end of the day. But I did see, obviously, kind of going off the back of these results, particularly that Bulls game, of course. You know, there's obviously a bit of controversy in terms of what happened to the lead of that game in terms of the selection they had. And, you know, I saw there's actually now rumors flying about that they actually may give a bit more rest, I guess, to the players into the following, I guess, Champions Cup in terms of the amount of rest days needed. Because, of course, you know, with the Bulls dealing with both URC and the Champions Cup, it's like that's the kind of the reason why they were like, okay, let's just prioritize one than the other. So obviously you want to make sure you're prioritizing both, because, you know, we see within football most times, and squads, you know, they should have the squad depth to kind of compete in both competitions. So it's one of those where I definitely didn't like it how that they went with their second team, and, you know, you have obviously saving players for that one for the one competition. So it just comes down towards just kind of just expanding a bit in terms of the rest days, so it allows players to kind of recover going into the next one. I think that's really the thing that I think the Champions Cup kind of people upstairs will look at. But no, I guess a link, I guess, towards the Champions Cup, particularly with one side, Leinster. I definitely want to get your take quickly on it. Joey Barrett, obviously signing his contract extension with New Zealand, but announcing that he'll do a sabbatical with Leinster for 6 months starting from 2025. So just wanted to quickly get your thoughts on that, because I'm a bit surprised that he's gone to Leinster, but again, I never knew obviously the backstory to it in terms of his whole family and all that. But yeah, what's your take on that move?
Well, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? Because we've got to think about it as well. Who do Leinster currently have in their midfield, and who are they going to be missing by the time that Geordie Barrett comes around? Because you'd assume that he's going to be a starter if you're going to bring him in for, unless they're going to try and kind of balance him throughout the two competitions, perhaps. Like you mentioned, how we got quite a kind of tight little window of game after game, week after week. But yeah, I mean, him in a midfield for Leinster, it's going to be interesting. And I mean, do I want to say he's going to be alongside maybe a couple of old friends in terms of James Lowe and Jameson Gibson Park? Of course, a couple of men we have seen play Super Rugby in the past. So yeah, it's going to be cool. I feel like it's a cool direction in some regards, because it means that maybe we're going to see more players jump to a different competition for a short period of time, but still be eligible to play for internationals. Maybe this is a step in the right direction for New Zealand rugby in terms of allowing overseas players to be able to still play for the All Blacks, because of course that's been such a heavy talking point over the last couple of weeks in terms of, you know, who is Razor even going to have available for his All Black selection. So yeah, it will be interesting. But yeah, I mean, Leinster not exactly a bad side. He's not going to do a
No, I
Stephen
mean,
Kitsoff and go to
yeah.
Ulster and then leave them before the year's up. Like that was a bit
Well,
of a shock, to be
well,
honest. But
hopefully, well, luckily it's only a sabbatical, so they don't have to worry about that kind of issue. But you are right. It's going to be one of those where I just saw Rugby Twitter blow up when this kind of was announced in a way that he's moving because it's like, oh, Leinster, they now have Jordy Barrett in the team. It's like they needed him in the first place because they're obviously an exceptional side anyway. So to have him and the likes of RJ Snyman, of course, there again, he's obviously had his injury problems, but still pretty big player to have. So it's one of those like where they're going to be a really good team to watch, I think, for next year. Obviously, just looking in the future. But I think the one other thing you kind of touched on it as well, like in terms of I guess like players moving across the abroad, really, particularly from Super B. The one I don't think we even mentioned beforehand is Fergus Burke, because he's a player who I honestly thought would be the next successor, or I guess like the player after Mackenzie in terms of going for that 10 jersey. But nah, he's obviously made it official. Like I think it was like a month ago or something like that. So I know this obviously kind of a bit in the past, but I just thought we needed to talk about it because it's a big thing in terms of New Zealand rugby because they're losing talent in key areas. I think and that's a key position to lose talent in, particularly in Fergus Burke, to move across the seas, of course, to Saracens, if I'm not mistaken, for a 3-year deal, which makes him eligible, if I'm not mistaken, for England as well as Scotland. So I'm kind of happy in a way because if he chooses Scotland, that would actually be awesome because I'd love him to be kind of like the successor towards Finn Russell in a way. I think that'd be kind of cool to see because Scotland definitely do need a new 10. I think he'd be great in terms of kind of his play style and all that. But if he goes to England, I'll be a bit like a bit disappointed because there's really a ton of options available there with likes of Finn Smith and Marcus Smith there. So I'm hoping he doesn't choose England, but you never know. But what's your thoughts on that move? Because I just wanted to get your take on that.
Well, you're talking about him, and also another player we need to mention who has recently confirmed an overseas departure, Josh Morby, heading to Montpellier.
Really?
He is.
I didn't even know
that was one that got announced as well, which means now, with
Whoa,
that move,
what?
Mr. Chance of getting into the ABs may now be no longer that opportunity.
Oh, I didn't even see
him.
that. Wow.
So
What was
there's
that?
so many. A little while ago, a few days, I think it was, somewhere around there.
Oh, okay. Because I included him within my with my All Black section thing. Again, he was obviously out of the whole bunch of players who I just put in who's in form, but I actually didn't know he actually arranged a move already.
2-year deal to Montpellier.
Wow. That's a big one. That's a big one to lose him because he's been a very consistent player, I say so far for the Hurricanes. But again, it feels weird me saying it's not wrong. It's not wrong me saying this, but New Zealand are stacked anyway in terms of I guess their options. So it's not like a massive loss, but still he's a very consistent player to have. So yeah, I guess you're missing out on a player like him. But yeah, it's interesting. It's fascinating to see kind of who's kind of moving around because again, it's the start of a new cycle, of course, for most teams. So and from all players, of course. So you're going to see those transitions, I guess, happening at least within this year because you want to kind of at least kind of build yourself, obviously, kind of ready for selection for the next World Cup. So it makes sense that there's a lot of moves happening. But yeah, no, we'll end it there, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the episodes in terms of episode 49. Make sure, obviously, to like the video, guys. Would greatly appreciate that. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Check out our respective channels. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time.